My ex-husband didn't even wait for the ink on our divorce papers to dry. Exactly 7 days after wiping 8 years of marriage clean, he walked down the aisle with his self-proclaimed dream woman. He posted their wedding photos online with a caption that read, "Finally found a real woman who deserves me." He thought he had completely destroyed me. He thought I was sitting alone in the dark, crying over what I'd lost. But when I zoomed in on his new bride's face, I didn't cry. I froze. A cold chill ran down my spine, followed by a surge of pure, uncontrollable laughter. Because I recognized that face. She wasn't some wealthy socialite or innocent dream girl. She was someone from my past, someone with a secret so massive, it was about to ruin my ex-husband's life forever. Follow my story until the end, and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Emily Watson. I'm 34 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought my life was completely settled. I'd spent 8 years building a marriage with Mark. 8 years of pulling double shifts, managing our household, and quietly sacrificing my own ambitions so he could climb the corporate ladder. I believed we were a team. I was wrong. The day Mark ended our marriage, there was no explosive argument or dramatic confrontation. He simply walked into the kitchen on a rainy Tuesday evening, set a thick manila folder on the counter, and stared at me with eyes that looked completely dead. "Sign them, Emily," he said, his voice flat and devoid of any warmth. "I found the love of my life. A real woman who actually fits where I'm going in life. You've been holding me back for years." The words hit like a physical blow, but it was his cold, patronizing smile that stung the most. He had already drafted the settlement. In his mind, he was offering me a favor by letting me walk away quietly while he kept his business equity and property. I looked at the man I had loved for nearly a decade, and in that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time, arrogant, shallow, and completely consumed by vanity. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I picked up the pen, signed my name on the dotted line, and walked out with my head held high. I thought that was the end of my nightmare. I had no idea it was only the beginning. Exactly 7 days after our divorce was finalized, my phone began vibrating nonstop. It was a flood of frantic text messages and missed calls from mutual friends. When I finally opened my social media feeds, my heart dropped into my stomach. Mark hadn't just moved on. He had thrown a lavish, over-the-top wedding ceremony in a private villa, complete with white roses, imported champagne, and a 60-piece orchestra. He had splashed high-resolution photos across every platform imaginable. In the center of every picture was Mark, grinning like a man who had just won the lottery, wrapping his arms around a stunning woman dressed in an ethereal designer gown. But it wasn't just the photos that were meant to hurt me. It was the cruel, targeted captions. "Finally found a real woman of substance who actually deserves me," one read. Another boasted about her supposed status. "Welcoming my gorgeous bride Sienna, heiress to an international real estate fortune. When you stop settling, true perfection finds you." Mark was broadcasting to the world that our 8 years together were nothing more than a temporary downgrade. He wanted to humiliate me, to make sure everyone knew he had traded up for someone younger, wealthier, and far superior to me in every way. Friends sent messages of pity, assuming I was sitting alone in the dark, weeping over my shattered life. I sat quietly on my couch, staring at the glowing screen. Slowly, deliberately, I pinched the screen to zoom in on the bride's face. I zoomed in on Sienna's face, expecting to see the flawless features of a high society heiress. But as the image clarified, my breath caught in my throat. The polished blonde hair and heavy makeup couldn't hide the subtle shape of her jaw, the distinct arch of her left eyebrow, or the faint scar near her hairline. The room fell dead silent. A cold chill ran down my spine, followed instantly by a sudden electric wave of shock. I knew that face. But her name wasn't Sienna, and she wasn't an heiress to any real estate fortune. Her real name was Veronica Vance. 5 years ago, before I stepped back from my career to support Mark, I worked as a senior corporate risk analyst for a high-end private security firm. My job was to investigate financial fraud and verify high-net-worth individuals. Veronica had been the subject of a massive, multi-state fraud investigation. She was a master serial con artist who specialized in a very specific target: arrogant, newly wealthy men who were desperate for a trophy wife to validate their egos. Veronica's strategy was brilliant and ruthless. She would infiltrate exclusive social circles using forged credentials, target a man consumed by vanity, spin elaborate tales of an offshore family trust, and convince him to consolidate his wealth to match her level. Once the ring was on her finger and joint access was granted, she would drain every account dry and vanish into thin air before anyone realized what had happened. I leaned back against the cushions, staring at the wedding photo of my ex-husband looking smugly into the camera. Mark thought he had traded me in for perfection. In reality, his insatiable vanity had walked him straight into the jaws of a professional predator. The more I thought about Mark's sudden rush to divorce me, the more the pieces began to fit together like a terrifying puzzle. During our divorce proceedings, Mark had been uncharacteristically aggressive about keeping total control of his business equity and corporate holdings. He had insisted on taking full ownership of every single account, happily dumping a few minor joint liabilities on paper just to clear his name quickly. At the time, I thought he was just being greedy. Now I realized Veronica had been whispering in his ear the entire time. I opened my laptop and began cross-referencing public property filings and corporate registry updates. What I found was breathtaking. In the months leading up to our divorce, Mark had taken out massive personal loans and heavily leveraged his business assets. He had put up his company's future revenue as collateral to secure millions in credit. Why? Because Veronica had convinced him that in order to merger their fortunes, he needed to prove his liquid net worth and deposit matching capital into a newly established offshore wealth management fund. To impress a fake heiress, Mark had stripped his own business down to the bone. He had traded a secure, stable life with a loyal wife who helped build his career for an illusion crafted by a master criminal. He believed he was cementing his status among the elite. In reality, he had placed every single asset he owned directly onto a platter for Veronica to claim. Mark had fought bitterly to keep me from touching his money in the divorce. He thought he was protecting his fortune from me. He had no idea that by keeping everything in his name, he had ensured that when the trap sprung, he would lose every single dime all by himself. 3 days after the wedding, Mark held an exclusive open invitation post-wedding celebration dinner at a high-end restaurant downtown. He wanted to parade his new life in front of the local business community. Armed with absolute certainty and a cold, calm focus, I dressed in an elegant black dress and walked straight into the venue. The moment Mark spotted me near the entrance, his eyes lit up with arrogant delight. He immediately grabbed Sienna by the waist and strutted over, eager to deliver a final humiliation in front of his wealthy colleagues. "Emily," Mark sneered, his voice loud enough to attract the attention of nearby guests. "I didn't think you'd have the nerve to show up. I suppose you wanted to see what a true high society woman looks like? Don't worry, I won't have security throw you out. You can stay and watch." I didn't break eye contact. I completely ignored Mark, took a step closer to his bride and looked directly into her eyes. The color was already beginning to drain from her face as she registered my composure. "Hello, Veronica," I whispered softly, keeping my voice low enough so only the two of them could hear. "It's been a long time since the offshore fraud investigation in Chicago. Does Mark know your real name yet? Or are you waiting until the wire transfers clear?" Veronica froze. Her posture stiffened instantly, and a look of sheer, terrifying panic flashed across her eyes. Mark looked between the two of us, frowning in confusion. "What are you talking about, Emily? Her name is Sienna. Stop making a fool of yourself." I offered Veronica a serene smile. "You have 24 hours before I hand my old investigation details to the authorities. Make your move." Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving Mark standing in bewildered silence while his dream woman began to visibly tremble beside him. Veronica didn't wait 24 hours. Panicked that an investigator was onto her, she initiated her exit strategy that very night. While Mark slept soundly, believing he had put me in my place, Veronica used the joint master credentials he had foolishly granted her. She drained every single liquid account, liquidated his leveraged credit lines, and transferred over $3 million into untraceable cryptocurrency wallets before boarding an early morning flight out of the country. By noon the next day, Mark's world completely collapsed. His credit cards were declined, his business accounts were emptied, and the banks began slapping emergency freezes on his commercial properties. Desperate and terrified, he tried calling Sienna, only to find her phone line disconnected and her social media profiles wiped clean. Less than 48 hours after trying to humiliate me at his party, Mark came pounding on the door of my apartment. He looked like a broken man, his eyes bloodshot, his suit rumpled, tears streaming down his face. "Emily, please," he sobbed, falling to his knees right on my welcome mat. "She took everything, my money, my business, my life. You used to work in risk management. You knew who she was. Why didn't you stop me? You have to help me fix this. We can go to the police together." I stood in the doorway, looking down at him with complete indifference. "Stop you?" I asked quietly. "Mark, you spent months plotting to strip me of everything. You handed me divorce papers and bragged about finding a real woman who deserved your wealth. You fought to keep every single liability in your name." I leaned in closer, my voice cold as ice. "You wanted full ownership of your life, Mark. Now you have it." I shut the door in his face, leaving him crying in the hallway. The financial devastation Mark faced was absolute. Because he had personally guaranteed all the leveraged business loans to impress Veronica, the banks moved quickly. Within 6 months, his company went into forced liquidation, his luxury car was repossessed, and he was forced to file for personal bankruptcy. With his reputation in ruins and his arrogance shattered, he moved into a tiny basement apartment on the outskirts of the city, working entry-level sales just to pay off his remaining debts. As for me, my life transformed in ways I never thought possible. I used my clean divorce settlement and my background in risk analysis to relaunch my corporate consulting career. Free from the weight of an ungrateful partner who constantly lowered my worth, my business flourished. Within 2 years, I purchased a beautiful, light-filled cottage near the coast, built entirely on my own hard work and independence. Looking back, Mark thought he was destroying me when he handed me those divorce papers. He thought he was walking away toward a grander, more luxurious life. He never realized that his own vanity and greed were the very things that would orchestrate his downfall. Karma didn't need to strike him down. His own choices did all the work. I learned that true peace isn't about getting revenge. It's about walking away with your dignity intact and watching life restore balance on its own. What would you have done if you found yourself in my place? Would you have warned your ex, or let him face the consequences of his own choices? Comment below, and let me know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out the 2 videos on your screen right now for more incredible stories. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.